welcome back to Inverted Aviators RC. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because we are going to be showing, well, the build process. I was in Hub Hobby the other day, which is our favorite local hobby store, and I came across a few interesting things. This is a little voltage reader, which can connect to whatever you want. As you can see, there's 3 empty wires on this side. But I also found these JST3S LiPo connector. And the whole idea here is to have a voltage readout while I'm flying the Evos. So you can see from these cameras, there's a little bit of black part that you can see when you're flying. And I've talked about in the past how this little black part is actually really helpful because it helps you gauge distances and better avoid things. But instead of just having it as empty black space, I thought, what if I could embed this voltage reader somewhere up front here so that while I'm flying, I can see how much time I have left. But also I could use that space, and it's a fun project and it's a small plane, and thankfully these little voltage readers are really light. So I'm going to go through the process and just, well, try to make it happen. And I've got 2 different cameras recording a time lapse, so I will do brief little updates as I go. Hopefully you'll see some pretty cool updates along the way, and yeah, let's get building. All right, here's the first proof of concept video. And so the whole idea is to connect these wires that read the battery voltage to the balance lead. Because normally when you're flying, this balance lead isn't doing anything, so, well, might as well put it to use. So if you connect these 3 pads here onto the 3 pads that are on the battery, on the balance lead, black to black, red to red, and the yellow is a signal wire, which means it goes to one of the open pads on the other side, you will see that 2 pads to power, and 1 for signal. You can see that I currently have 12.3 volts in this battery. Now that is a pretty nice bright light, and it shows that it will work as long as I get a connector here, which I have, and I can solder it on and connect all these wires up. So next step, figuring out where to actually put this little voltage reader. Right, next little update. I just looked at how much of the nose we actually have to work with, or how much of our camera can actually see the nose, and it turns out it's pretty much everything after this windshield. So I've got this much space to fit in this little meter, and I think I'm going to put it somewhere right in the middle and kind of slanting upwards so that the angle from the camera here will see it rather than it being like a flat angle here. Hopefully that'll help with glare, not sure. That's just the idea, is that it'll be somewhere in the middle facing up. And we do have a little bit of space under here. I'm probably gonna try to slot it in between these 2 standoffs. Seems like a good fit, might as well. I don't see why not. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm aiming to go. I'll show one of these next soldering points next. I cut the connector in half because we only need this female part to connect into the battery. So all we're going to do here is solder these 2 together, and we've got the ends are black is the farthest to the left, and then we got power is next to it, and then red is signal. I'm going to cut off this wire because I won't actually need it. Since since this voltage reader only has 3 wires, there's no need to have an extra wire here, so I'll just give that a quick cut. There, I left a little bit just in case for whatever reason I decide that, oh, I do need that, I can resolder on a piece, but I do get this really nice piece of wire out of it, so that's a win there. Next little step, we've got this nice case of heatsink. What heatsink does is allows you to solder wires together and then put this protective coating on so that no wires touch. So I'm going to cut, I will do the signal wire here, which is yellow to red. And with this handy dandy little grippy hand tool, it's super easy to solder things together. So I'm going to put a little bit of heatsink on this red side, because red will go to the signal yellow on the other side. And so you put some heat sink on this side and slide it all the way out of the way, because this shrinks with heat. So you don't want it anywhere near the soldering iron. And likewise, I will get this little yellow piece a little more out. And then we're gonna have some flux. Now what this does is it causes the wires and the metal to catch the solder better. So by dipping just a little bit in here, you can see it's on the end of it on both sides. So clip this side in, and then I'll do the same with this yellow wire. We'll get just a little bit, well, that's quite a bit, but that's okay. I'll clip this into the other side. And then again, with this nice tool, it's super easy to solder these usually more difficult wires together. You can see I'll zoom in a little bit and get them touching here. I'll get this whole thing out of the way. Yeah, they're touching there. And now we have my soldering iron, which is a T100. I'll link it in the description because it is a super, super nice soldering iron, and it's perfect for these small little builds. So I've got the soldering iron here. I do have, I'll clear off the workstation quick, but I have a sponge to wipe off any excess solder, and I have TBS solder here, or tin. This works really well also for these very small projects. So I'll start off by cleaning the soldering iron, getting excess junk out of there. And then I will add a little bit of tin. I'll zoom back in here. I'll add a little bit of tin. This will smoke up a little bit. Make sure to not breathe this stuff in as much as you can. That's just a general rule of thumb. And all I'm gonna do is apply a little bit of pressure while applying a little bit of tin, more smoking. Sometimes that'll happen, they just won't connect. Totally fine. Just try it again. And just like that, these wires are connected. And so you can keep adding a little bit more of the solder if you don't think did a good enough job, or you're a perfectionist like me who can't just sit still until it's absolutely perfect. And just like that, these wires are completely connected. And so I'll put the soldering iron aside, and I can unclip these two pieces. And just like that, we are 1/3 of the way done. And once I'll show this process too, but then you can take this heat sink and slide it over the wire, and then it's perfectly protected. So I'm gonna finish up and do these two other wires, and I will catch you guys up once we get our next point. All right, soldering was pretty smooth. All these joints look really nice. And the next step before plugging in the battery is making sure that these wires don't touch. So I'm gonna do that with moving all these little pieces of heatsink over. I can zoom in. These heatsink will go right over these joints. Just like this. And then I've got this really fun tool. It's a Hanger 9 heat gun. And it's pretty much just a very high-powered hair dryer. And so I'm going to, here it is, high-powered hair dryer. And all it is gonna do is shoot really hot air onto these heat sink, and it's going to, well, shrink them down and cover up those joints. So it's gonna be loud, so I'll probably cut out the audio, but I'll keep it here and I'll show you guys what it looks like in just a second when these are done shrinking up. Well, that's all there is to it. It's just a little bit of heat, and you can see these things are now snug and they're not going anywhere on these wires. And the most important part of this is that now these wires and these joints are secure. You can touch them together and they're not gonna fry anything. So if we give this a test, now that we have this thing all connected, I'll prop this up here to again give it a good view. Voltage reader there, and the balance plug will go simply into this side, and just like that, 12.3 volts straight out of the battery. And so that's super nice. It's exactly what I wanted. And the next step is cutting a hole in this battery hatch, probably right in the middle, again, right above these two stanchions, and placing this thing right in the middle. So let's get moving. All right, after quite a bit of cutting and figuring out where I'm actually gonna lean this thing, I got a nice hole in it. And as you can see, it's right up against this first little bar, which I wanted to keep in there for a little extra structural support. And I have these two lines that I made, which is where the whole thing will sit and lean. So it's not gonna be a flat, like flush fit with the top, like I've said earlier. I want it to go in, and I want these little wings on the side to lean up against these two bars. So then you see on the top side, you get a little bit of angle towards the camera. So again, the camera is up here and it's gonna be looking down. So I wanted to have it a nice angle to help hopefully get rid of some glare. So my next step is probably gonna be either gluing it in or seeing out how I can angle this the best. But I am also going to test it to make sure that I can see it really well and everything is looking good. But yeah, it's going good so far. Quick update here. I had an idea of using a little bit of foam cure craft glue, which is good for foam, to put at these little dashes so I can cut the exact angle I want for this to fit in at. So there's a little extra support for these wings. So I've got one of them already in, and it takes a little while to cure, so I'm getting this done now, but I will put the other one in and then let it sit for a while. Something else that I'm gonna do off camera, for the back of this board, there's a lot of these exposed solder joints. And so I'm going to take some conformal coating that I've talked about before and paint it on the back and all of the sides and make sure that no matter what happens, no liquid can get in and kind of ruin all of this circuitry. So all you need to do is take a little paintbrush, mix it in, and then just spread it on to the back of the board. And so yeah, those are the next two steps, which require a little bit of waiting, so I'm gonna try to get those done as early as possible. Well, the glue was taking too long to dry, and so I switched to a little piece of double-sided tape on each side, and I folded it so that this could be sitting at an angle. And so now the idea is that it would sit and kind of angle itself up. And I think I'm gonna add a few more pieces of tape maybe over here and on this side to keep it propped in place. But then I'm gonna see how it looks from the camera's perspective, because I think it is looking pretty darn good. Here's another little thing that I decided to add in order to make it a little stronger. If you give it a little bit of angle like I did, there's a gap on this side, which might not be a big deal, but I cut out a little piece of the top that I already cut out and made a little triangle shape. And so you can fit it right in this gap. And I'm gonna glue this in to give it a little extra stability and strength on this backside, but also kind of smooth out this curve. It's so small that it might not affect any of the aerodynamics, but then if anything, it makes it look a little bit cooler to make it all back to as close to uniform as I can be. But that's just another thing that I'm gonna do. I also realized that my random, let's put it in between these two stanchions, was actually a good idea, because in front of this is the motor of the plane. So this part attaches onto these magnets. So if I were to put this any further forward, it would interfere with this motor. So I would say, if you're gonna do this yourself, make sure to not go any further forward than this front bar that's across. You can even lean it against this bar for a little extra stability, but no further forward. Right, so I got it all connected up, and as you can see, right there in the nose, and you also see from the camera on here, I'm surprised to say it might be too bright, and that's not a permanent issue. I might try to put a piece of, like, I don't know, masking tape that's maybe tinted a little bit darker, but this is on and it's fit in there. I still have to glue a few things to make it more permanent, but look how nice that looks. Let's see if I can get a better view of it. That looks so awesome. I'm so excited to try and test fly this. Wow, look at that. You have voltage and you can see it in the camera. That is so exactly what I was looking for. So a few other things that I will note going into this. You can take the top off and remove it quite a bit since there's extra battery lead, or there's extra cord here so that you're not like tethered to it being super close. But if I can unplug it, And still, I can even test how much voltage is in my battery before even taking off. So I know that, you know, I've got a full flight's worth. But like I said earlier, I don't know if I mentioned it, this conformal coating is, it reacts, I don't know what it does. If you shine this conformal coating with a black light, you will see that it lights up. So this is just showing how there is a really good seal over all the electronics. So if I happen to crash and this thing flips into some water somehow, this won't have any internal issues, at least with this new thing that I added. Another thing to consider is, since there is a little bit more weight now in the nose, and so to combat this, I am going to put the battery a little further back in the plane. Usually I try to line up the back of this Velcro with the back of this Velcro that's in the plane, but I might try to shift it back just a little more to keep that center of gravity the same throughout the before and after, including this little voltage reader. So that pretty much concludes the video. I am going to go out and fly and see how it works. I'll include that in the video as well. All right, so as you can see, it looks awesome. This is exactly what I wanted right out of the gate. We've got a pretty easy to read voltage meter right on the front, and it doesn't take up too much of the screen. It's right down in the middle. And so a question that would probably be asked, and it would be a good question to ask, why would you want to do this? And so the big idea is that with lithium polymer batteries, which are what the batteries that are mainly used in remote control, there is a set amount of battery cycles that they can handle before they just crap out and don't work as well as they did fresh out of the box. And with LiPo batteries, their max voltage per cell is 4.2, and their minimum that you should fly is about 3.4, 3.5, depending on how cautious you want to be. And so you can do a little math with this voltage reader. If you are at full, you'll at 4.2 times 3 cells, which will get you about 12.4 volts. So you can see I'm right around full at 11. And if I stop flying at 3.4 volts per cell, I will put her down when I'm about 10.2 volts per cell. And that's not just a flat 10.2. As you can see, if I punch it, the battery will sag, and if I let off it, it'll rise back up. So what this is doing is pretty much allowing me to control my battery cycles so that I can get more use out of my battery before needing to replace it. And it looks so nice. I am so happy with how it turned out. I think adding a little bit of that tape plus black marker to kind of mute the colors a little bit really helped. I think that maybe even adding a little more would be nice, just so it's not as bright. But as you can see, you can do acrobatics with it. It's not going anywhere. It's staying on, and it's doing really well. Yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. If you have any other thoughts on what we could add, what we could change, what we could do to make this work even better, we'd love to hear it, because working on tiny planes like this is so much fun. Because while there might be a limit in weight, there is still just so much to do with this plane. So yeah, we'd just love to hear more about it. Hello?
Hi. Sorry about it.
No.
It's really cool. It's a drone, but
It's a plane technically. Yeah. Well, it's just, we have a little camera on the top of it, which is why I'm looking through these goggles here. And they're super fun to fly, and it's getting cold out, so it's kind of harder to fly. But also on the nose, we added this little voltage reader. Yeah. So we can tell how much battery is left, because beforehand we just set a timer and just assume that we're doing what we're supposed to.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to get a some video, because me and my brothers have a YouTube video where we add stuff and talk about these cool planes. Yeah. And so I wanted to get a little bit of film before Thanksgiving when they come back, so I can show it to them.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, it's working really well. I didn't bring an extra pair of goggles, but it's, you know, it's fun, and the soccer field's wide open. There's, why not fly?
Oh, that's fantastic,
yeah.
Man. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of fun.
So you basically, it's like you're like flying a Reaper drone.
Exactly, yeah, and it feels with these goggles, I assume it feels like you're actually flying, because I'm looking right where the pilot would sit, and I'm controlling it, and it's like there's almost no latency between the transmitter and the plane itself. And so it's just super fun. And these things are ultra micro extreme is the class, because they're tiny. Yeah. And so they're just so snappy. You can do whatever you want. They're so much fun. Yeah.
You could strap a little away you go.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, obviously, but I mean, this is what's going on. And
yeah, but it's it's so much fun. And these are only like,
you can't hover. It's a plane.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but they do have flaps, which I just put on, and so you can fly really slow. Especially if there's a little headwind.
Yeah.
I can.
Oh, sure.
So you see, I'm sitting pretty still.
Yeah, you're covered.
Yep, and then I can flip the flaps off and just take off. Yeah.
How much does something like that cost you?
Oh no, it's 170 bucks for the plane itself, and the camera is about 15 bucks, and then the goggles and the transmitter will run you a little bit more depending on how high quality stuff you want. But the little voltage reader we added was about 10 bucks, and the little wires are about 5. But
so 500 bucks whole package?
It varies. I actually, if you're curious, it'll be a fun plug. I've got a business card that I can give you. That's just a link to our YouTube channel where we talk about the plane, the transmitter, the goggles, everything. Because that's why we made the videos, because it's fun to, figure all this stuff out. But I will land here in a second. I can give you my card. Yeah, I'll land the other way so it's towards us. Oh yeah. How about that? Yeah. Isn't that cool? All right.
How long's the battery life typically?
5 minutes-ish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're pretty small. So I can give you a business card because we made them a while ago, and whenever people come up and ask about it. So yeah, feel free to check us out.
I will, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's they're so much fun. And so this is the little voltage reader we added, and it's a little just a little thing we soldered in there to the battery, and yeah, it's super smooth and it works really well.
So you got some electronic skills.
Oh yeah, a little bit of soldering, a little bit of, we've crashed these a few times. You can see the little spars everywhere. But
this is your antenna? Or?
Yeah, that's the all-in-one camera. So it's got
cool.
a camera that takes in the signal and it transmits it out of here, and then my goggles over there will take in that signal and then display it to me.
Neat.
So I can see it in real time, and it's really fun.
You can download it. And...
Yep, and upload it and put it onto YouTube, which is what we do. And so we fly around here the most just because it's wide open and a lot of fields worth. But yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, so cool.
Yep. Well, it's crying at me, so I'm gonna take the battery out.
I saw you pull up the chair instead of the Vikings jersey, and like, maybe he's gonna put up a TV and some guys are watching the game in the field.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
hey, nice to meet you. My name.
It's nice to meet you as well.
Take care, buddy.
Yeah, you as well.
All right, I got one last update. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little dimmer. And I achieved that by putting just some normal 3M masking tape just over the screen. And then I used a black marker to color it, and then I wiped it off. And I colored it and I wiped it off. And I tried to build up a little extra layer of ink. And I think it looks really good. You'll be able to see from the camera view that it went from being this kind of washed out, super bright, to now a really easy to read colors. And so you probably either are just did see the plane flying in the air with this, or you're about to, but either way, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch this fun process. If you can think of any other things to add to the Evo that would make it a better flyer, we'd love to hear it, because this is super fun to work on, and as you can tell, it was a fun project because the workstation is super messy, so that means it was a good project. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to check out all our other videos if you want to see what else we can do with this little Evo, and we really appreciate you spending the time here. Thanks.